Welcome back, everybody. This is found footage. Today we're talking about an indie movie, but you know, not really a technological breakthrough or anything.
No, not really. At all. Not at all. About $1 million of its budget, not VFX heavy whatsoever.
Little small studio.
Little small project. Yeah. Simple title. You know what I mean? Like,
we're talking about Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, people.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're talking about Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes.
Yeah. I wasn't expecting a title that short. I'm not gonna lie.
That's a bit short. Right?
It is. For this franchise, I don't know. It's still up there. I'm not gonna lie. They should have just named it Kingdom of the Apes.
Me personally, The Planet of the Apes would have been a great name. You're starting a new trilogy. It'd have been a great homage to
the Suicide Squad.
Yeah, it would have been the first
the Batman movie. The Fantastic
And if
Four.
you think about it, it makes sense in retrospect. It's the Planet of the Apes, and at this point where this movie takes place, it's kind of that. Like, so it would.
So I guess that should lead us into talking about it. Before we do, though, I mean, if this is your first time here, you know, do us a favor, like the video.
Please
hit the subscribe button, click the bell. All three of those for free. They cost literally nothing besides a Google account. And we need
Put us in the algorithm.
Yes.
Because
it's hard.
Yeah,
it's difficult.
It's tough out here.
What do you think about the movie, though?
An absolutely astonishing movie. I mean, just visually, story-wise, I'm invested in these characters. Like, when you watch the first Planet of the Apes of the newer trilogy, like with Rise. Yeah, when you watch Rise, I mean, granted, the humans are playing a more integral role in that movie. You kind of do get attached to Caesar's character, though, and that's it's no different here in this movie. Like Noah, I was immediately attached to his character and the way they presented him. It was like with this kind of
very different,
humble, and like
he's
bonding with like his village and stuff like that, and it really grounds the character and makes him feel like not one of us, but it makes him feel on that level. It doesn't make him feel like a crazy smart ape,
or
even though
above anyone.
Yeah, because that's how they kind of do Caesar and Rise. You know, like they're like this dude is different, whereas Noah isn't like that.
But
he's
Caesar
more
is
like
very assertive. I feel like they both have their similarities, but the movie does something interesting with Noah, where it kind of makes me interested in like what type of leader is he gonna be. He does not seem like he's gonna really be like Caesar in a way. And
Caesar was, I mean, he was leading the charge, man. Like,
he was very selfless too. He was extremely selfless. He would do things like literally by himself.
I don't want to say like the expression that it just fell into his hands, but it kind of feels more like that with Noah than Caesar. Like Caesar felt like he was like leading the charge, whereas with Noah in this movie, it kind of feels like it's a part of his arc and it kind of falls into like what the storyline is doing. It's not like Noah is doing it on his, like, it's not like he's meaning to do it. You know what I mean? Like Caesar was, like when Caesar was meaning to like create this like new like powerhouse of apes.
No, he wasn't. He was just freeing them of like.
But that's what I mean. That's what I mean. Noah's not really doing that. No, but that's what I mean. Noah's not doing that at all.
No, he's kind of just naturally climbing the ladder and like. It just happens very
like what I'm saying is none of his motivations feel like Caesar's motivations, where it's like to free the apes and stuff like that. It more feels like Noah is
like where they what type of leader he becomes and how they progress of it
in the movie. You definitely get an arc here with Noah in the movie, but obviously it's gonna grow. Like 100%.
This movie's obviously gonna draw lots of comparisons to the previous three movies.
I mean,
it's taking place after
the beginning of the movie is straight up like telling you like
I didn't expect this movie to be as I wouldn't even say connected, but rather reference as many events or just reference the past trilogy like as much as it did.
I mean, it's at the center of the movie if you think about it.
It really is. I think what they do and how they use Caesar's legacy is really good in here.
It's great. It's not done in a way that like tarnishes it. Even though one of the characters in this movie kind of does. It doesn't feel like that's what they're doing with it though. Like it feels like they're treating it with reverence and using it more as like the building blocks for a new trilogy. And I mean, I think I was telling you this in the car after we watched the movie. I couldn't think of a better way to integrate that past trilogy.
It's very natural.
So it feels like, it does not feel like a new trilogy.
No, it's very much almost, even though it's set so far in the future, the way they handle the previous events from the last 3 movies and like the gap between that time, it doesn't feel like really anything forced, but rather it's very a next step in kind of the story. And if anything, if there's anyone to credit for it, I'd say 𝙑𝙧𝙚𝙚. I feel like,
I mean, 𝙑𝙧𝙚's directing in this movie.
He let us live in the world, and some people might find it like a bit too slow or boring. For me, it was almost immersive in a way.
Yeah,
where like
in a way that the other Apes movies don't have. Whereas the other Apes movies are just so damn good, you're never watching a movie going, I feel like I'm in a different like world.
Well, that's because you're not.
You're not.
They're not taking place that far.
But I'm just saying that's the aspect of this movie that I took away that had me sad. It was slow, but it had me still like sitting there.
That's what kind of dissolved the gap between the, I don't know how much they like, interviews and stuff say it's like 300 years after war. I don't know how much exactly. They just say generations.
Yeah.
But it really dissolves that gap by just letting you kind of sit in the world and breathe it in. It doesn't feel so like hammered against your head or like this is what we're doing now. Like it doesn't really feel like that. It feels almost like a natural progression, even though the world is almost entirely different.
And I was telling you this also after the movie, that it feels like this movie could spawn spin-offs. Like genuinely, it feels like this movie is a spin-off. I wonder
if they even have that in mind.
Like like I'm watching this movie and you watch the previous trilogy and they feel like singular storylines. Like one story, this is where we're going with it. Whereas Kingdom, I was watching it and I was going, this feels like it could be a spin-off of this,
I could see that.
The
different clans, like you could
society,
you could study or not study, but you can make spin-offs on different clans, different characters.
It feels like Noah's story in this feels like a spin-off of the actual of the world we're in, the 300 years past. It feels like Noah's a spin-off of it.
Yeah, I feel like that was definitely the advantage of making it set so far in the future. You're really like, they give 𝙑𝙧𝙚 and like the writers and the creative team on this a real like big sandbox to play in. They can do a lot and change a lot.
Could have easily fumbled this. I mean, let's just be honest here. This is a VFX heavy film
for sure.
That, I mean, you're coming off the hinges of.
But the technology,
has
quite progressed.
Arguably one of the greatest trilogies of all time. Like you're coming off the hinges of some straight cinema, and 𝙑𝙧𝙚 spares no doubt that like. This can hang with those, like straight up in terms of quality, the technical work in this movie. Like,
I think we've gotten to a point where like these movies, like especially these type of movies, where before going into it, they know it's a VFX heavy movie.
Yeah,
they're gonna give it time. They're not gonna cut corners.
There are times in Kingdom that feels like, okay, the CGI could be a little bit better, and it's been better in the previous trilogy. But the motion capture cannot be mistaken. In like
the close-ups,
we've taken such a leap in terms of motion capture. Guys.
The most impressive thing to me were the close-ups. Every time there was a close-up in this movie,
absurd detail,
looked so phenomenal.
And I saw people like going like the third act of this movie is like Avatar level. I wouldn't compare anything to Avatar.
I think what they're saying is the water. It has something to do with the. That's all I'm gonna say.
No, it's not even the water.
To do with water.
It's not even the water, because I did see a jump in terms of the VFX quality in that third act. I noticed it clearly. I was like, we're dealing with water simulations and water on these monkeys and their, and how it affects their hair, and it's like. It's at the realistic, like, throughout the movie, there's realistic CGI moments, but, like, it gets the realist in that.
Let me cut you off. Put you in the anaconda chokehold. What didn't you like?
What didn't I like?
Yeah, see?
Now I gotta
put the whoopee cushion under you. See?
What didn't I like? The human elements of this film could have been handled better.
I think they are kind of the weakest out of the 4.
I don't
out
even
of this
think
and the
it's
trilogy.
That they're
I think they are
the weakest. I think it's just the way the story is told. Where like in the other trilogy, yeah, that's what I'm saying. In the other trilogy
was pretty cold.
The humans are there.
Yeah,
they're there.
Yeah,
and in this movie, it's like no humans for the first half, and then out of nowhere, humans are in the movie, and that's kind of how it feels.
It does set
for
up
better or
things.
for worse, yeah.
That
because
could
there's
really
some interesting stuff with May's character played by Freya Allen. There's some interesting stuff that they could take her character. There's an interesting like
places and
just where they're going with what they want the movie to feel like in terms of the humans versus the apes. There's no like picking sides. At the end of the movie, it feels like they're for their own kind.
Absolutely.
And I feel like that's something that could serve for an interesting ass story.
Kind of be the contrast
down the road. I mean,
between the last trilogy,
I would say that's one of my gripes with the movie is just those bits of human elements. And
I think it does get take a bit to get going.
It does. I was gonna say it is a little bit of a slow burn. It lets you breathe in the world, but it's a huge problem for me. But I could see it being a problem in general because it's definitely. It's not like the kind of slow burn that's in the previous Apes movies where it's a slow burn for the sake of the actual story. This one has some slow burn moments for the sake of the world building. And
letting you take in
just letting you take in this new experience of an Apes trilogy. But all in all, I mean, I just can't say too much bad about the film. I love Wes Ball's directing work. I mean, let's just be real. Wes Ball is the greatest director of our generation. We got the Maze Runner trilogy, which is possibly the greatest trilogy of all time, and I am not kidding.
I hope you're joking.
No, but in all honesty, the Wes Ball guy, I love the Maze Runner movies. Even I didn't expect Wes Ball to knock it out the park this hard.
It has me really excited.
It seemed like Wes Ball was like in his bag, like this is for the
Zelda movie. It has me really excited for the Zelda movie.
I mean, he definitely knows what he's doing with VFX. I mean, he's one of those directors that knows how to utilize VFX work to his advantage.
Absolutely.
And I mean, throughout the movie, I'm just like watching this movie, just going. I mean, the writing is great.
It's beautiful too.
I mean,
it's
just
shot
directing
so well.
work in terms of capturing performances and scenes, and like there's some scenes in this movie that have some tension to it, and it's like none of that stuff works without
tangible.
Yeah, it feels so tangible, and I just feel like none of that stuff works without Wes Ball's directing prowess in the movie. And
where would you put this though? If you had to put it with the last 3, so take all 4. Where would you put it?
If I had to put it with the last 3, I like it better than Rise. I said I have it over War when I walked out the theater. Letting it linger, letting it sit a little bit. Not sure.
This movie doesn't have Bad Ape.
Not sure.
It doesn't have Bad
Ape. It doesn't have Bad Ape. And also, another thing I'd like to point out is that the antagonist of the movie is...
He's pretty good.
He's pretty damn good.
I'd say he's better than...
It's less him being the best antagonist and more of just him being the perfect antagonist to make you root for Noah.
Yes,
it's the perfect antagonist. And I feel like in the other Apes movies, it's not that prominent. You know what I mean? It doesn't feel like I'm cheering so much for Caesar because of this antagonist. More like there's a good antagonist.
A little bit, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like this movie, it's like what they do to Noah's character and his family and stuff like that. Automatically, it makes you go, we need him dead now.
I need to shout out Rocca because he really gave some Maurice energy that was so lovable, likable, heartwarming, endearing, everything that you love about Maurice from the previous 3. I feel like the score in here wasn't as prominent as like the Matt Reeves ones. Not even Rise either. I do feel like the scoring here was pretty solid. It is similar to the other movies.
I mean, there's almost relatively nothing that this movie does better than Dawn. And honestly,
that's a really high bar.
Yeah, it's a high ass bar. But we're not gonna sit here and talk over like it's the greatest Planet of the Apes movie ever. It's just really
it does
damn
prove
good.
The consistency of this franchise.
And honestly, this literally feels like it could be one storyline.
It's very consistent with this franchise.
My second favorite film of the year.
Yeah, I still got some movies above it, but it's there.
He's still glazing the shit out of Challengers.
I love Challengers.
He's still glazing it,
but this isn't about Challengers. But I think I'd agree with you. I think I liked it more than Rises. It does some very interesting things with the world, with the characters, and there's a huge potential with it being set so far in the future, and having a sandbox to build out these kind of sections of apes, and just overall how the end of this film could potentially affect the future.
And I will say one thing I like about the way the movie ends is that it is on a cliffhanger, but it's not on one of those cliffhangers that like...
Yeah, you still get a satisfaction.
Like they're completely like telling you, this is going to be in the next movie.
Yeah.
We're just not going to show you.
Some satisfaction.
Doing part 2, Across the Spider-Verse. I love both of those movies, but they leave you kind of going like, oh... damn, like,
well, that's because those actually,
like, oh my god, and this one kind
other
of feels
parts
like,
confirmed.
Like, yeah, but this one kind of leaves you on a cliffhanger, but at the same time feels like a conclusion in a way.
Yeah, it's very. There's definitely a satisfaction by the end of the 100%. Movie. You guys leave us some comments below. Let your thoughts on this. If you want to go see it, if you're not going to see it, what are you doing? We're clearly telling you.
Go watch it in
IMAX. Purchase the ticket on the biggest screen.
It's monkey season.
The loudest theater.
Go watch it in IMAX.
Yeah, we've already watched a lot of monkey movies, but if you've made it this far and you haven't, what are you doing? Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, click the bell, all that stuff helps out the channel a lot. Yeah, this has been Found Footage, and that's all, folks.
Is he allowed to say that legally?